Night descended, and the shimmering crystal lights reflected off the calm ocean waves. The most luxurious resort on the coastline, where Whitmore Enterprises was hosting its 10th anniversary celebration, was more dazzling than ever. From the stretch of beach to the infinity pool area, hundreds of distinguished guests gathered, raising their glasses to toast one of the region's largest financial conglomerates. William Whitmore, the man behind the empire's success, strode through the crowd with an air of authority and cold detachment. His perfectly tailored black suit fit his strong frame flawlessly, and his deep emerald green eyes reflected the glimmering lights of the grand event. He was the center of attention, a successful businessman, a king without a throne in the financial world. Around him, the clinking of glasses echoed continuously. Business partners and shareholders of all ranks showered him with endless congratulations. Yet despite this lavish celebration being in his honor, William felt no interest in it whatsoever. These kinds of parties had long become tiresome to him. The hollow well wishes, the fake smiles, and the calculating gazes. Everything was merely a staged performance in the world of business, one he was obligated to partake in. Just as he raised his champagne glass to his lips, murmurs suddenly spread from one corner of the ballroom. William arched an eyebrow and turned toward the whispers, which were spreading like wildfire. And then he was met with a sight he never expected to see. At the entrance of the banquet hall, a woman walked in with a composed yet commanding presence. A long black gown accentuated her slender frame, but it was her deep brown eyes, dark as an abyss, that captured everyone's attention. Claire Wilson, the woman he had once loved, once hated, once erased from his life. But what made William freeze was not her appearance. It was the two small children holding her hands. A boy and a girl, around 5 years old, their striking emerald green eyes mirroring his own. The entire ballroom plunged into a deathly silence. All eyes flicked between William and the two children. No one spoke, but everyone understood. The resemblance between William and the children was undeniable. His heart gave a powerful thud, but he immediately dismissed the unsettling feeling. Impossible. Setting down his glass, his gaze turned icy as he stared at the woman standing before him. "What kind of game are you playing, Claire?" His voice was low, laced with a dangerous mockery. Unfazed, Claire gently stroked the boy's hair before looking up, her voice carrying through the hushed room. "They are your children, William." A wave of shocked murmurs erupted. Guests exchanged astonished glances. Shareholders reeled in disbelief, and the media buzzed with excitement at the scandal unfolding before them. William stood motionless, feeling as though he had been doused in ice water. He stared at the two children before him, Noah and Nova. Noah, standing to the right, had bright green eyes filled with caution, as if carefully assessing the man before him. Nova, on the other hand, was bolder. Her large eyes studied him curiously before she suddenly smiled. That smile was hauntingly familiar. It was the same smile he had as a child. The silence between them stretched, so profound that it felt as if the entire ballroom was holding its breath. Then William laughed. But it wasn't a laugh of joy. It was cold and dripping with disdain. "Do you really think I'd fall for this cheap trick?" His voice was low and razor sharp, each word slicing through the heavy air. "You disappeared from my life 5 years ago without a word, and now you show up claiming I have children?" Claire's expression remained unreadable as she held his gaze. "You don't have to believe me, but whether you accept it or not, the truth remains the same. They are yours." There was no plea, no defense in her tone, and that infuriated William even more. He stepped closer, his presence looming over her as he leaned down, his voice a menacing whisper. "Do you think I don't know gold diggers like you? Bringing 2 children here, weaving a touching story, expecting me to fall for it? How much do you want? 1 million? 10 million? Or a stake in my fortune?" Claire remained poised, unwavering. "If you don't believe me, then test them. A DNA test will give you your answer." A simple statement, yet it carried undeniable weight, thickening the tension in the air. A flicker of hesitation flashed in William's eyes, but then he smirked. "Fine, we'll do a DNA test. And when I prove you're a fraud, I want you to disappear from my life forever." His words were sharp as a blade, but Claire did not flinch. Without another word, she turned and walked away, holding the children's hands. Just before stepping out of the grand hall, Noah instinctively glanced back at William, his green eyes holding something deep, something searching, as if trying to recognize the man before him. William stood still, watching their retreating figures vanish. He had no idea why his heart was pounding so fast. He told himself this was nothing more than a scam, but deep inside an uneasy feeling crept in. A feeling that his life would never be the same again. Welcome to today's story. We hope all the best things come your way. Let us know what you think about our latest story, and don't forget to tell us which city you're watching from. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss a meaningful story each day. Chapter 1. Flashback: A Shattered Past. 6 years ago, Claire Wilson and William Whitmore had a marriage that many envied. They were deeply in love, a love that seemed unbreakable. William, a strong and ambitious man, had once considered Claire his heart, the one person he wanted to protect for a lifetime. And Claire, despite coming from an ordinary background, carried herself with pride, loving him with all her heart, never caring for wealth or status. They had been the perfect couple, evening strolls together, mornings where Claire brewed coffee for William before he left for work, the gentle embraces at the end of the day. Every moment had been a cherished memory for William, but in a single moment, everything collapsed. A fateful day. William was in the middle of a board meeting when he received an anonymous email. Attached to it were a series of photos and videos. His grip on his phone tightened as he looked at them. In the images, Claire stood next to an unfamiliar man, smiling and talking intimately. Then came a video. She was walking into a hotel with that man, not just once, but multiple times over the past month. The world crashed around William. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The woman he had trusted completely, the woman he had once vowed to spend his life with, had betrayed him like this. Rage, pain, and devastation surged through him like a storm. When Claire returned home that evening, she immediately sensed the change. The spacious apartment felt unusually cold. William sat on the sofa, unnervingly calm. On the table before him lay a divorce file along with several photographs. Claire's heart clenched. "What is this?" Her voice trembled as she picked up the photos. William stared at her, his eyes as cold as ice. "That's the question I should be asking you." His voice was sharp as a blade. "What have you been doing for the past month, Claire?" A shiver ran down her spine at his tone. She opened her mouth to speak, but William tossed the file toward her. "I was a fool to trust you." He spat out each word, his gaze filled with hatred. "This is the end for us." Claire's heart shattered. She looked at him, desperately searching for a trace of trust. "Do you really believe in this?" William let out a cold laugh. "Then tell me, do you have any proof to prove your innocence?" She froze, her throat tightening. Because at that moment, she had no proof. She had no idea how those pictures had come to exist. All she knew was that she had never betrayed William. But how could she prove it when all the evidence was against her? William gave her no chance. The next day, he filed for divorce. No explanation, no opportunity for her to defend herself. With just a single signature, a once beautiful marriage was torn to pieces. And on the final day of their marriage, William looked straight into her eyes and said the words she would never forget. "I regret ever loving you." That was the last time they saw each other, before everything changed forever. Heavy rain poured down as Claire stepped out of the luxurious apartment that had once been her home. No final words, no last glance back. She silently pulled her heavy suitcase, disappearing into the cold night. The rain soaked her face, blending with the hot tears streaming down her cheeks. She didn't cry because she was leaving. She cried for what she had lost, for the betrayal that hadn't come from her, but from the very man she had loved most. The iron gates of the estate closed behind her, sealing away all the beautiful memories, along with the unbearable pain that would never fade. She had once thought that if their love ever ended, at the very least there would be an explanation, some small fragment of trust. But no, William hadn't even given her a chance to speak. He had believed the photos, the fabricated videos, more than he had believed the wife who had stood by his side through everything. If he no longer trusted her, then what was there left to hold on to? Her hand instinctively rested on her stomach. A life was growing inside her. Not just one, but two. Two tiny souls, the last remnants of the love she and William once shared. But now that love had shattered into jagged shards of glass, and she couldn't allow them to be hurt by the man who had turned his back on their mother. No one knew that the night William threw the divorce papers at her, she had already been carrying their children. She never told him, not because she wanted to keep it a secret, but because she knew, even if she had said it, he wouldn't have believed her. If he had been so quick to believe she had cheated on him, he could just as easily doubt that the children were his. So she left that dazzling city behind, abandoning everything, the beautiful memories, the happy days, and the deep wounds that could never heal. She chose a small town, a place where no one knew her, to start over. No longer Mrs. William Whitmore, no longer the wealthy woman who had once lived in luxury. Now she was just a single mother, doing whatever she could to survive and prepare for the arrival of the two lives growing inside her. Pregnancy was a battle. She had no one by her side, no family, no close friends. Morning sickness tormented her. Lonely nights in a tiny, dimly lit room. Exhausting days working herself to the brink just to save every penny for milk and diapers. But she never regretted it. She would never regret it. She named them Noah and Nova, two tiny stars that shone brightly in the darkness of her world. They were her reason to keep going, the light guiding her through the hardest days. No matter what, she would never let them feel unloved. She would protect them at any cost. Time passed day by day, month by month. Noah and Nova were born in a small hospital, in a cold, sterile room that was warmed only by a mother's love. The moment she saw their tiny faces, she froze. They had William's features, his sharp eyes, his well-defined nose, even that same unwavering gaze. But their father didn't even know they existed. She had often wondered, would there ever come a day when he found her? Would there ever be a moment when he realized that on the day he had thrown her out of his life, he had lost not just the woman who had loved him, but also his own children? But then she laughed at herself. Number William had long forgotten her, and so she kept moving forward, not as a discarded wife, but as a strong mother, willing to do anything to protect her two children. The early years of being a single mother were a journey of hardship that only Claire truly understood. She had no family by her side, no one to help her, and not a single shoulder to lean on when exhaustion overwhelmed her. Everything rested solely on her shoulders. In the first days after giving birth, she had to juggle caring for two newborns while struggling to find a way to make a living. Noah and Nova grew up in a small apartment, no separate bedrooms, no luxurious toys like other children. But Claire never let them lack the most important things: love and guidance. She taught her children about self-respect, about how to be strong without having to rely on anyone else. There were nights when she stayed up working, translating documents, writing articles, even taking on sewing jobs, just to afford milk for her children. When they fell ill, she panicked but could not afford to collapse. With no one to turn to, she could only hold them close, soothing them, whispering to herself that tomorrow would be better. No matter how difficult things got, she never once considered going back to William. To her, he was the past. If he hadn't believed her back then, returning now would only make him think she had come to take advantage of him. But fate gave her no choice. One day, while at work, a sudden dizziness washed over her. The pain had been lingering for weeks, but she had dismissed it as exhaustion. However, when she finally went to the doctor, the diagnosis shattered her world. The illness had progressed to a dangerous stage. If she didn't seek treatment immediately, she might not have much time left with her children. For the first time in 6 years, she felt fear, not for herself, but for Noah and Nova. If she was no longer here, who would care for them? Who would teach them to grow, to love, to protect themselves? She had always believed she could do everything on her own, but now she had to face a painful truth. She could not protect her children if she did not survive. And as if fate were playing a cruel joke, she was left with no other choice but to return, to face the man who had once abandoned her. Not because she wanted to rekindle anything with him, but because she could not let her children lose everything. Chapter 2. media crisis, and a company in danger. After that fateful night at the resort, the media erupted like a violent storm, drowning everything in a flood of rumors and scandals. Headlines from major and minor newspapers alike seized the opportunity, making William Whitmore the center of one of the most shocking financial scandals in recent history. Billionaire William Whitmore, shocked as mysterious woman brings children to his party, claiming he's the father. Are these children really his, or just a scheme for wealth? William Whitmore accused of abandoning his own children for 6 years. No one knew where the leaks had come from, but the stories spread like wildfire, with each news outlet twisting the narrative slightly to create the perfect spectacle for public consumption. Some reports even speculated that Noah and Nova belonged to another man, and that Claire had orchestrated this scheme to secure a fortune from William. William was furious at the media storm, yet his demeanor remained icy and composed. He immediately ordered a DNA test to settle the matter once and for all. But even as he did, he had no idea that the true nightmare was only beginning. An undeniable truth. William sat alone in his office, the dim light from his desk lamp casting sharp shadows across the papers before him. The DNA test results. He didn't need to read them twice. A single glance was enough. According to the analysis, the probability of a biological relationship between Alexander Whitmore and the two children was 99.99%. A strange sensation curled in his chest. Not joy, not even shock, but deep, consuming rage, laced with a bitterness that was suffocating. 6 years. 6 years. He had lived in ignorance, never knowing that somewhere in the world he had children. Never knowing that 2 lives had been growing up without him. His grip on the paper tightened, his knuckles turning white. William Whitmore had always been a man in control, but at this moment, he felt as though he had been betrayed in the worst possible way. A woman he had once loved, once trusted, and yet she had hidden this from him for 6 entire years. His throat felt dry. A low chuckle echoed in the silent room. A cold, merciless laugh filled with disdain. Claire had returned, bringing these 2 children, throwing the truth in his face as if the past 6 years had never happened. What did she expect? That he would be moved? That he would embrace them? That he would apologize for not looking for her all these years? Number. She would get nothing from him except his anger. His emerald green eyes flashed dangerously as he reached for his phone, his voice low and lethal. Get Claire Wilson in my office, immediately. A confrontation. When Claire stepped into the office, the first thing she saw was the DNA report being slammed onto the desk. William's gaze was dark and unreadable, but there was no warmth left in him. Only rage, contempt, and the unmistakable sting of betrayal. He slowly stood, stepping toward her, each movement heavy and deliberate, like a storm closing in. You hid them from me for 6 years and now you just bring them here? What do you want? Money. His voice was razor sharp, slicing through the air, cutting straight to her heart. But Claire did not flinch. She held his gaze, unwavering, unyielding. Whether you accept it or not, they are still your children. William laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that carried no amusement. Yes, they are my children. But why am I only finding out now? Do you take me for a fool, Claire? He leaned in, his voice dropping into something dark and dangerous. Don't tell me you came back without an agenda. Claire remained calm, but deep in her eyes something flickered. Pain. Of course he didn't believe her. Of course he wouldn't. She had prepared herself for this reaction, but hearing the accusation still hurt more than she had expected. She took a slow breath, her voice steady but gentle. I didn't come here to ask for anything. I came for Noah and Nova. Oh, really? William's smirk was ice cold. And I'm supposed to believe that you returned just for them? Not for money? Not for my name? His gaze darkened. Or did you come back to extort me? Claire's fingers curled into fists. She knew he wouldn't trust her so easily, but she didn't have time to waste. She had to do this. For her children. Lifting her chin, she met his gaze head-on, her voice unwavering. Believe whatever you want. But whether he believed her or not, she would not back down. As soon as the DNA results were made public, the media had yet another reason to escalate the scandal to its peak. Confirmed, William Whitmore has illegitimate children. What will the CEO do? Family scandal causes Whitmore Enterprises to suffer a major blow in the financial market. Whitmore Enterprises stock began plummeting rapidly. Within a single day, the company lost nearly 15% of its market value. Panic spread among the shareholders. They weren't just worried about the scandal, but also about the damage to the company's reputation and the erosion of investor confidence. Some of the major shareholders began dumping their stock, eager to abandon what they now saw as a sinking ship. The board of directors immediately called for an emergency meeting. Inside the conference room, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. The same people who had once pledged loyalty to William now wore expressions of doubt and unease. An elderly shareholder was the first to speak. "William, do you have any idea how much money the company lost today?" William's fist clenched, his gaze darkening. Another board member chimed in, his tone full of reproach. "This scandal cannot continue. It is severely damaging the corporation's reputation. You need to provide a clear explanation." "What is there to explain?" someone else scoffed. "He has illegitimate children, hid them from the world, and now he's been exposed. That alone is enough to shake investor confidence." Another shareholder placed a firm hand on the table, his sharp eyes locking onto William. "We are calling for a vote of confidence." William let out a cold laugh. He knew someone was pulling the strings behind all of this, and he had already started suspecting Victor Whitmore, his cousin, the man who had always coveted his position. But before he could respond, another bombshell dropped. An important contract with a major business partner had been signed with unfavorable terms, resulting in severe financial losses for the company. People began questioning William's leadership. With his personal scandal already tarnishing his reputation, his position was now more unstable than ever. And the one orchestrating all of this was slowly pushing him to the edge of ruin. A vote of confidence was officially proposed. William was being backed into a corner. William realizes he's been set up, and he won't go down without a fight. From his high-rise office, William stared at the stock market screen, watching as Whitmore Enterprises shares bled red. His hand clenched into a tight fist, his jaw locking with barely contained fury. "I won't let this continue." His voice was cold as ice when he called his personal assistant into the room. "I want a full investigation into all unusual stock transactions in the past week. Also, find out exactly who signed that disastrous contract with our foreign partners." There was no doubt in his mind anymore. Victor was behind this. But why now? Why this exact moment? Then a memory struck him. The night at the resort, the moment Claire walked in with Noah and Nova, the way she had calmly declared that they were his children. At first, he had thought she was behind it all. But what if she was just a pawn in this game? What if Victor had used Claire as bait, turning this scandal into the perfect weapon to take him down? William needed to uncover the truth, and before Victor could destroy him, he would strike back first. Chapter 3. The Truth Revealed. The mastermind behind it all. William had no time to waste. He needed to unmask the puppet master pulling the strings before Whitmore Enterprises collapsed entirely. For days, he had been carefully observing the board of directors, tracking stock transactions, and monitoring media reports. Everything had happened too smoothly, too perfectly to be mere coincidence. But to confirm the traitor's identity, he needed solid proof. William called for a private meeting with his security team and legal advisors. "I want a full report on all stock transactions made by our shareholders in the past month." As he skimmed through the list, his sharp gaze locked onto an alarming pattern. Key shareholders had begun dumping their stock even before the scandal broke. There was no way this was just coincidence. Someone had warned them beforehand. William leaned back in his chair, his grip tightening on the documents. "Victor?" The betrayal runs deep. William didn't stop there. He ordered an investigation into recent secret meetings among the board members. And the results boiled his blood. Victor had met with at least 3 major shareholders just a week before the scandal erupted. The meetings had taken place in exclusive restaurants, places where recording devices were easily detected and discreet dealings could be arranged. He bribed them. William clenched his fists. The very people who had once sat at the table with him, built this empire with him, had turned their backs on him. But why? Was it just financial gain? Or was there something far deeper at play? He needed a fatal strike to expose Victor. Just as he was preparing his next move, one of his internal sources, a private investigator he had hired, brought him a crucial lead. "Mr. Whitmore, we uncovered old documents related to your wife's alleged affair." William froze. Affair? The incident from 6 years ago. The memories surged back like a storm. The photos, the video, the shattering sense of betrayal. But something felt off this time. "What do you mean?" William's voice was dangerously low. The investigator placed a thick folder on the table, containing emails, text messages, and security footage from the hotel where the supposed affair had taken place. "We verified everything. Those photos, they were doctored. And the video, it was a fabrication stitched together from various unrelated clips to create the illusion that Ms. Claire was unfaithful." "What?" William's eyes widened, his chest constricting as if a vice had wrapped around his heart. Everything he had believed for 6 years had been a lie. He flipped through the documents, his fingers tightening around the pages as one name appeared over and over again: Victor Whitmore. Victor had orchestrated the entire deception. He had manufactured fake evidence, manipulating William into believing Claire had betrayed him. He had forced Claire out, condemning her to raise their children alone for 6 agonizing years. He had stolen William's family, and now he wanted to take his company too. The rage of a betrayed man. William slammed his fist onto the desk, sending papers scattering across the room. He felt utterly, ruthlessly deceived. 6 years, well, he had lived in a lie. 6 years. He had hated, scorned, and abandoned the woman he had once loved more than anything. He had left her to suffer alone because of one man's ruthless scheme, and now she had returned, but not to ask for forgiveness. Numbers she had come back to give him their children. Why? What was she hiding? Chapter 4. William's counterattack, regaining control of the company. William didn't act recklessly. He knew that to bring down a schemer like Victor, he couldn't let anger cloud his judgment. He had to strike with a fatal blow. That very night, he summoned his legal team, financial advisors, and private security experts. Every document, shady transaction, and underhanded deal that Victor had orchestrated over the past months was compiled. But William needed something stronger, evidence so irrefutable that there would be no escape. How had Victor manipulated the board? What tactics had he used to spread false information and tarnish William's name? How long had he been planning this coup? William didn't sleep that night. He pored over every financial record, every email, every stock transaction linked to Victor. And then he found the fatal flaw, the fateful board meeting. The next morning, William called for an emergency board meeting. Inside the conference room, the air was thick with uncertainty. Some of the shareholders had already sided with Victor, ready to vote William out if necessary. Victor sat confidently at the table, a smug smirk playing on his lips, as if victory was already his. But he had no idea that this would be the day of his downfall. William rose to his feet, his icy gaze sweeping across the room. "Before we discuss the company's future, I have something important to present." He gestured toward the large screen. The room fell silent as a series of documents, emails, and financial transactions appeared before them. The shareholders' eyes widened in shock as Victor's name repeatedly surfaced in the records of those who had dumped their stocks, before the scandal even broke. "As you can see," William said, his voice cutting through the tension, "Victor Whitmore had private meetings with several key shareholders. He knew about the scandal in advance and was actively feeding the media." Victor's smirk vanished. His body stiffened. He hadn't expected William to have such damning evidence. "And that's not all," William continued, his tone razor sharp. "I also have proof of vote manipulation within the board. Victor bribed shareholders in an attempt to stage this coup." The board members murmured among themselves. eyes now filled with suspicion as they turned to Victor. "This is a lie!" Victor shouted, bolting to his feet. "I didn't do any of this." William let out a cold chuckle. Victor was panicking. "You didn't?" William asked, pulling out a USB drive and plugging it into the screen. A recording played, Victor's own voice echoing in the silent room. "As soon as William is removed as CEO, I'll take over. After that, we can sell the company to foreign investors and make billions." A stunned silence filled the room. Victor went pale. His betrayal had just been exposed in front of everyone. The fall of Victor Whitmore. William stepped closer, his voice chillingly calm. "Victor Whitmore," he declared, "you have betrayed your family and this company. As chairman of the board, I am officially proposing your permanent expulsion from Whitmore Enterprises." Not one shareholder objected. A vote was held on the spot. The verdict? Victor was fired. His face turned ghostly white as the realization sank in. He had lost everything. Security entered the room, moving toward Victor. "You can't do this to me," he screamed, thrashing against the guards. "William, you bastard! You'll regret this." But no one was listening. Victor Whitmore was dragged out of the room, his desperate curses fading into nothingness. William secures his empire. With Victor removed from the company, Whitmore Enterprises began stabilizing. William held a press conference, reassuring the public that the company remained strong and untouchable. The media turned their focus toward Victor's corruption, shifting the scandal away from William. Within a week, stocks rebounded. Investor confidence was restored. William had won, but even though his company was safe, there was still an emptiness inside him, because there was one person he still hadn't found, Claire. And now, nothing was holding him back anymore. He had to find her. He had to know the truth. Chapter 5, Finding Claire. Since the night he saw Claire at the resort, their every encounter had been filled with nothing but arguments, anger, and accusations. Not once had he truly stopped to ask her the questions that mattered. Why had she come back? How had she survived these past 6 years? Why now? A part of him still couldn't forgive her, still held on to the resentment of the past. But as days passed, another feeling began to overshadow that resentment. Worry. She was hiding something. William recalled the way she had looked at him, as if there was something she wanted to say. But then she always held back. He remembered how she never fought back when he accused her of using their children to get to him. She never argued, never defended herself, not even when he coldly demanded a DNA test. That wasn't the Claire he had once known. The woman he remembered was fierce, unyielding, never one to back down without a fight. Something was wrong. He had to find out what it was. That night, William left his office and drove straight to the small apartment where Claire lived. She didn't answer his calls. He rang the doorbell. No response. A terrible feeling coiled in his stomach. Stepping back, he glanced through the living room window, and his heart stopped. The door was slightly open, and then he saw her. Claire stood near the doorway, one hand clutching her chest, her face pale as death. Before he could call out to her, her body suddenly crumpled to the floor. "Claire!" William rushed forward, catching her just before she hit the ground. Her breathing was shallow, her skin cold and clammy. "Stay with me. Do you hear me? Open your eyes." She didn't respond. Without hesitation, he lifted her into his arms and ran to his car, speeding through the New York streets as if his own life depended on it. But in that moment, only one thought screamed through his mind. "Don't leave me. Not again. Not like 6 years ago." The hospital halls felt endless as he carried her inside. Nurses rushed to take her, but as they wheeled her into the emergency room, he could do nothing but stand there frozen. The sight of her, so fragile, so pale, clawed at something deep inside him. When the doctor finally emerged, his face was grim. William was on him instantly. "How is she? Is she going to be okay?" The doctor studied him for a moment before slowly removing his glasses. His eyes filled with something William had never seen before. Sympathy. "Are you the patient's family?" The question made him freeze. Family? 6 years ago, he had been her husband. They had shared a home, a life, a love that once felt unbreakable. But after everything he had done, after the way he had doubted her, abandoned her, Did he still deserve to be called her family? His voice was hoarse when he answered. I'm the father of her children? The doctor sighed, his tone heavy with regret. I don't know how long she's been hiding her condition, but it's been far too long. A cold dread coiled in William's gut. What do you mean? The doctor's gaze was filled with quiet sorrow. She has end-stage heart disease. The condition has been progressing for years without proper treatment. If she doesn't undergo surgery soon, the words slammed into him like a death sentence. The world around him blurred, his ears ringing. She had been sick. She had been suffering, alone all these years. She never told him. She never once asked for help. She had raised their children, fought her battles, endured everything without ever coming to him. And what had he done? He doubted her. He accused her. He thought she had come back to use him. He had cornered her with cruel words, forcing her to endure his cutting remarks. And now, the things he had said to her just days ago came back like knives, slicing through his soul. You show up after 6 years and expect me to believe they're mine? You think bringing 2 kids to my doorstep will give you a place in my life? If you think I'll soften just because of them, you're wrong. Damn it! William pressed his fist against the wall, his nails digging into his palm. His throat felt tight, as if something heavy was crushing his chest. He had been wrong, so wrong. She hadn't come back to manipulate him. She had come back because she was running out of time, and he had hurt her when she was at her weakest. His hand trembled as he gripped the edge of the hospital door. He had already lost her once. This time, he wouldn't lose her again. The surgery lasted over 8 hours. Throughout that time, William never once left the hospital hallway. He sat there, head bowed, fingers clasped so tightly together that his knuckles turned white. Every passing minute felt like a century. On the waiting room couch, Noah and Nova had long fallen asleep, their small, innocent faces unaware that their mother was fighting for her life in the operating room. William lifted his gaze toward the closed doors of the surgery room, his chest tightening with a pain unlike any he had ever known. For the first time in his life, he was truly afraid. He could lose her, the one woman he had once cast out of his life, the mother of his children. He had let her go once. He wouldn't accept it this time. The doors swung open. William shot to his feet, his entire body tensed as he locked eyes with the surgeon stepping out. The surgery was successful, but she will need time to recover. His entire body sagged, hands trembling as he gripped the back of a chair to steady himself. A wave of relief crashed over him, so overwhelming it nearly took his breath away. She lived. She had come back to him, to their children. A week later, Claire opened her eyes. The soft glow of the hospital lights made her blink a few times as her vision adjusted. Her body was weak, but the pain wasn't as unbearable as before. And then, she saw him. William sat beside her bed, his head resting against the mattress. He had fallen asleep, exhaustion evident in the deep shadows under his eyes. His usually polished appearance was gone. His hair disheveled, stubble covering his jaw, the powerful CEO now looking so much more human than she had ever seen him. She pressed her lips together. She had never seen him this worn down. As if sensing her gaze, William stirred, slowly opening his eyes. And when he saw her awake, his eyes lit up with an emotion so raw it took her breath away. "You're awake!" His voice caught in his throat as though there were 1,000 words he wanted to say, but didn't know where to start. I was terrified. He was still kneeling by her bedside, his hand tightly holding on to hers, as if he was afraid she would disappear again. There was so much between them, too much pain, too much loss, too many wounds that he had inflicted himself. His voice was hoarse when he finally spoke again. I owe you an apology. Each word was heavy, as if every syllable carried the weight of 6 years of regret. I was wrong, Claire. I was wrong from the moment I let myself believe those lies without ever giving you a chance to explain. His grip on her hand tightened slightly, his emerald eyes clouded with self-reproach. I cast you out of my life, and for 6 years, you carried everything alone. You raised our children, endured all the hardships, and he swallowed hard. No amount of apologies can make up for what you went through because of me. Tears welled up in Claire's eyes. For 6 years I hated you, he continued, voice filled with bitter laughter. I convinced myself that you were the traitor, that you had betrayed me. His lips curled into a self-mocking smile, full of pain and regret. But in the end, the real betrayer was me. Taking a deep breath, as if gathering the courage for what he was about to say, he looked at her again. I didn't just doubt you, Claire. I despised you. I let myself believe in your betrayal so completely that I never even considered the possibility that it was all a lie. His voice wavered, raw with emotion. I threw away the woman I loved most because of a misunderstanding. His gaze dropped, shoulders tense as he forced himself to admit the truth he had denied for so long. I don't know how you survived all these years, how you endured the pain of raising 2 children without me, how you found the strength to come back even when you knew you had so little time left. I don't deserve your forgiveness, not after everything I did to you. He bowed his head, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought you were the cruel one, but in the end, I was the cruelest of all. The room fell into a heavy silence. Tears slipped down Claire's face, each drop carrying the weight of 6 years of heartache. He was truly sorry, not just for doubting her, but for not being there for her, for letting her face the world alone. If he had believed her back then, if he had been patient, if he had listened to her just once, maybe they wouldn't have been left with so many scars. She took a deep breath, looking into his eyes. I hated you for so long, William. Her voice was soft, but it carried the pain she had held on to for 6 years. There were nights when I stayed awake, reliving the moment you turned your back on me, wondering how you could throw me away without a single explanation. She exhaled slowly, blinking away the tears. I thought I would hate you forever. A sharp breath escaped William's lips, and then, but despite all of that, despite the anger, the hurt, and the loneliness, she tightened her grip on his hand. I never stopped loving you. William froze. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. Claire, she reached up, placing her hand over his, holding it with a quiet strength. We can't change the past, William, but I don't want our future to be filled with the same mistakes. He stared at her, his heart pounding, waiting for the words that would decide everything. And then she nodded. I forgive you. A sharp gasp left his lips as a choked breath of relief surged through his chest. He couldn't hold back anymore. Leaning forward, he wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close, as if trying to imprint this moment into eternity. This time, he wouldn't let go. As William released her from his embrace, he looked directly into her eyes, his gaze filled with unwavering determination. I will never lose you again. Never. With a gentle touch, he placed a familiar object in her hand, the wedding ring from years ago. Let's start over, Claire. Will you give us another chance? Tears welled up in her eyes, but this time, they were tears of happiness. She nodded. Before they could say another word, Noah and Nova came rushing in, wrapping their small arms around their parents, giggling in joy. Their family was finally whole, and this time William would dedicate the rest of his life to protecting what mattered most, a new beginning. Weeks later, Claire was discharged from the hospital. The surgery had been a success, but she still needed time to fully recover. The day was bright and warm, sunlight gently illuminating the path outside the hospital. William stood waiting, one arm securely holding Noah, the other hand gripping Nova's tiny fingers. The moment he saw Claire step through the doors, he immediately walked toward her, his gaze steady and full of promise. Let's go home, Claire. Her heart swelled at those words. 6 years ago, she had left his life in tears. 6 years later, he was the one holding onto her hand, making sure she never walked away again. But before she could take another step, something unexpected happened. William dropped to one knee. Right in front of the hospital doors, he pulled out a glimmering diamond ring, holding it up for her to see. Marry me again, Claire. His voice was strong, but his eyes held something else. Hope, longing, and a silent plea. This time, I won't lose you. There will be no misunderstandings, no pride keeping us apart. We will raise Noah and Nova together. We will live the life we should have had 6 years ago. Tears streamed down Claire's face. She didn't need a grand wedding. She didn't need the extravagance or luxury. All she needed was this man, this family. She nodded. Yes. Noah and Nova erupted into cheers, clapping their hands and hugging their parents. They had lost so much time, but in the end, they had found their way back to each other. A simple yet perfect wedding. There were no castles, no extravagant ballrooms, no thousands of guests. Their wedding was small and intimate, with only family, a few close friends, and their two little angels standing beside them. Dressed in a simple white gown, Claire looked more radiant than ever in William's eyes, far more beautiful than any bride in the world. As they exchanged vows, there was no more doubt, no more pain, only love. When William leaned down to kiss his wife, Noah and Nova erupted into excited cheers, their little hands clapping in joy. They had been through too much, lost too much, but in the end, they had found the one thing that mattered most: family. And this time, they would cherish it for a lifetime. Misunderstandings and pride can destroy even the most precious things in life. William and Claire had lost 6 years because of a lack of trust, but in the end, love and family had brought them back together. This story is a reminder: never be too quick to judge without knowing the truth. Never let pride and resentment rob you of a second chance, because when we learn to forgive and cherish those who truly matter, we understand the real meaning of happiness. Family is not just where we come from. It is where our hearts truly belong. Thank you for following our story. Did this story touch your heart? Leave a comment below. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. This story was partly inspired by a member of the Soul Stories family, Ms. Claire. She is currently in the hospital, and we just want to send our heartfelt wishes for her speedy recovery.